A couple weeks ago, I had the joy of getting to go to a continuing education experience. Now, I'll admit, I didn't entirely know what I was getting myself into. So here's how it went. We have Episcopal seminaries throughout the country. I went to Church Divinity School of the Pacific, which is housed in Berkeley. We're the one West Coast one. We're the hippies of the group. And we do have another Berkeley Episcopal seminary, as it would be, Berkeley Episcopal Divinity School at Yale. And a friend from there reached out and invited me to this program. And so I'll admit my mind just went, Yale? Sure, yeah, I'll go. In. The Episcopal seminaries throughout the country are amazing, but I'll admit my heart's always had a little place for this one. And I've always wanted an opportunity to go and study there. It could be that I am of the generation that grew up on shows like Gilmore Girls, where the main character goes to Yale. And so a little part of me wanted to go find Handsome Dan and, just like immerse myself in the Yale experience. So I went, admittedly not knowing a whole lot about what I was getting myself into, except that it was going to be some sort of week of learning with other leaders in ministry. I'm so glad I said yes, and not just because it was Yale and we got to do really cool things, which I'd love to tell you about, like going to the Rare Manuscripts Library and holding an original Gutenberg Bible. Oh my Lord, it was amazing. But the learning was equally fruitful and meaningful, and dare I say, transformational for me. The focus of the week was on adaptive leadership and applying concepts of adaptive leadership to ministry. Looking at what are the challenges that we face and how do we address those? How do we address those in new and innovative ways? How do we parse the difference between what might be a technical challenge and an adaptive challenge? And we spent a fair amount of time analyzing and exploring the ways in which we have maybe misdiagnosed what are really adaptable challenges as technical challenges. How many times have we thought, if we can just fix this, everything will work? Right? If we just find someone to run this ministry, it'll keep going smoothly. If we just get more people in the pews, everything will be fine. If we can just build back to whatever we were before, it will solve everything. It made me realize the number of times we've seen things and thought, that's just a technical thing. We just need someone to do it. When maybe we needed to ask ourselves, what is the change and the challenge that we have before us? Maybe it's not doing it the way we've always done it. Maybe the way we've always done it doesn't work anymore, even if it did for a bit, and that's okay. What if we're being called to do something new and scary, and maybe we don't want to do the new and scary thing? We hear in the gospel today this sending out of the laborers in pairs, right? Does this sound inviting? Do you want to sign up for this ministry? Yeah, well, preach, sister, we know. Take nothing with you. Go and prepare to be rejected. It's amazing what Jesus calls us to do when it comes to being uncomfortable. It's amazing how little Jesus called us to build up these institutions and these one places where we gather. Jesus instead does a whole lot of sending us out into the world. I wonder about this practice that we've had, and I know what I'm saying. This is like my livelihood here, is having a congregation and a place where we gather and draw people in. And we keep trying to do that, which is not a bad thing. But Jesus is pushing us out the door. Jesus is calling us into community. What if we ask the question of not how do we get more people in the pews, but how do we get more of us into the community? Jesus, I don't think, called us to overflow pews inside four walls, but called us to fill the streets with Christians, called us to overflow the world with our message and our witness, called us to challenge the status quos, not just of the world out there, but our own world too, our own safe little community. There's an adaptive challenge in there that I can't let go of. And in many ways, I'm preaching to the choir, I want to be clear. St. Dunstan's takes 400 meals out into the community every week. Doesn't mean that there's not more each of us individually we can do, but I want to be clear, there's so much this community does do. But as we think of the future of being a faith community, being an institution of God, of being the part of the Episcopal branch of the Jesus movement, as our former presiding bishop Michael Curry used to say, how might we face the adaptive challenges? Because we're never going back to the 70s. And maybe not going back is a good thing. I was surprised to see an op-ed this week from our current presiding bishop. How many of you saw the letter from Okay. So our current presiding bishop, Sean Rowe, published an op-ed as we face the 4th of July. And presiding Bishop Rowe has attempted to shooken things up quite a bit, some with great reception and others with negative reception. But he said a few things in his letter, in his op-ed, that I wanted to share with you, and I commend the whole letter to you as well, but I won't read all of it. But he starts by saying, "It is shaping up to be a complicated Independence Day for the Episcopal Church." Also, I apologize I didn't memorize it. I know you guys love that I do this without a manuscript, but forgive me. "We were once the church of the founding fathers and presidents. 34 of the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence were members of what became our church after the Revolution, and 11 presidents, including George Washington, have professed our faith. Today, however, we are known less for the powerful people in our pews than for our resistance to the rising tide of authoritarianism and Christian nationalism emanating from Washington, D.C. When religious institutions like ours enjoy easy coexistence with earthly powers, our traditions and inherited systems can become useless for interpreting what is happening around us. But our recent reckoning with the federal government has allowed us to see clearly the ease with which the Protestant tradition of patriotism can lead Christians to regard our faith more as a tool of dominion than as a promise of liberation." He goes on to say, "The reckoning, if we are honest, is long overdue. Every July 4th, our prayer book reminds us of our failure to stand against enslavement of Black Americans with a prayer for Independence Day claiming that the founders of this country won liberty for themselves and for us, but not for all of us. The Episcopal Church did not make a moral stand against slavery, and some of our eminent leaders were pillars of the transatlantic slave trade. Our church ran residential schools for Indigenous children, at which they were denied their culture and their God-given humanity. And in the mid-20th century, our foreign missions aligned with the U.S. foreign policy in Asia and the Pacific, and in Central America and the Caribbean." I promise he gets to some better news. These historical lessons are urgent. Churches like ours, protected by the First Amendment and practice in galvanizing people of goodwill, may be some of the last institutions capable of resisting this administration's overreach and recklessness. To do so faithfully, we must see beyond the limitations of our tradition and respond not in partisan terms, but as Christians who seek to practice our faith fully in a free and fair democracy. We did not seek this predicament, but God calls us to place the most vulnerable and marginalized at the center of our common life, and we must follow that command regardless of the dictates of any political party or earthly power. We are now being faced with a series of choices between the demands of government and the teachings of Jesus. This is obviously a very specific letter about the very specific things happening in our country. But I think the bold witness of it, regardless of what your politics are, is a call for us to challenge our tradition, a call for us to challenge our norms, and a call for us to challenge the privilege of the way we've always done it. We are being called to be uncomfortable, to give up some of the standing that we have had in order to truly stand with the marginalized, to get out of the safety of our pews and into the streets of our community. So maybe we do say yes to this going out, to the giving up some of what we have, to the giving up of our hope. Giving up is a wrong word, but of letting go of the goal of just filling our pews, but maybe turn to the goal of filling the streets with our witness, with our evangelism, and with our voices. Because the voice of our church, of our particular branch of the Jesus movement, the voice of our congregation in Shoreline, the voice of each of you in this community is a holy witness to our divine encounters. So may we go out boldly and bravely and profess our faith in the world. Amen.